You're listening to the Cynic Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igri and Cynic.
And you are listening to episode 37 of the Cynic Radio Podcast, and I'm your host, Cynic. And with me, as always, a man who lost the governor's race to Jesse Ventura by only 2 votes, my friend and yours, Igri. Jules and Ryan are here with us as we discuss, do a little bit of listener mail, really, and what's up, because we are the CRP, and we are truly humbled in a sea full of podcasts you chose ours, and we will never take that for granted. Listen, like, and subscribe. Most importantly, enjoy the show.
All right, boys and girls, Vulcans, Wookiees, and whatever else has been sending us all these messages. You asked it. We're answering it. This is listener mail.
Jacob from Portland writes, you guys have been covering a lot of Game of Thrones, but season 6 is my favorite. Will you be doing any of that before the premiere?
Absolutely. I mean, we got to be ready, and we're getting you guys ready for the upcoming season 7. So we're going to be talking about the end of season 6 in the next couple of episodes. There's just a lot of things going on, and we wanted to kind of get people that haven't watched this show kind of interested and ready for season 7, because you know what? We here at Cynic Radio Podcast really think Game of Thrones is pretty much one of the best shows ever produced for television in the history of television. I mean, yeah, I know it's out there where they say, you know, it's not TV, it's HBO. But that might almost be true because HBO is really pushing it up to the next level. You're going to want to stick around for the next few episodes. We've got some really great stuff coming.
Yeah, our next 2 are Battle of the Bastards and Winds of Winter, which, in my opinion, are 2 of the strongest. They ended the 6th season with some of the strongest content to date. A lot of pieces moving forward, a lot of good things happening. So that's our schedule. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time between Walking Dead and Game of Thrones to cover every single episode. If we were professional podcasters and didn't have day jobs, we absolutely would have. But unfortunately, we can only do what time allows us to do. This one's more of a comment than a question. Beth from Bushkill, Pennsylvania, congrats on your podcast getting recognition on iTunes. You guys are doing great. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, I could not believe that we made it to the top 5 in our category of TV and entertainment. It's humbling. There are so many things out there people could listen to. Look, there's YouTube out there, Sirius XM radio, just regular TV, millions of different podcasts out there. And somehow we got into the top 5. It's so humbling, and every single download we get is wonderful, and we care about every single one. So if you guys ever want to hear about more things or you have questions, please send them to us at cynicradio@gmail.com, or you can go through our website at cynicradio.com. It's a wonderful thing. We really do care, and we do this because we think people are really starting to like what we have to say. And if you don't like what we have to say, reach out to us. You know, we'd love to have a discussion with any of you.
Absolutely. Nobody here's a listener. Nobody here's a fan. You guys are all friends. When we started this, we couldn't imagine 10 people listening to our nonsense or our questions or concerns or comments about anything that we had to say. And as every week is going up, the podcast is growing more and more and more. And that's because of you. You know, if you listen over a device that you can subscribe, definitely do that. And we'll be here every week, turning out more and more content, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Maybe some of it you won't, but as long as you listen and you get a laugh, that's all that's important to us. Miss out on that latest viral video? Didn't see the most recent trailer for the next movie coming out? In the dark about what the biggest song in America is? We've got you covered. Every week we scour the internet and look for the latest and greatest. This is What's Up.
What's up for me this week is the new Netflix series, Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. This is a nice new series from Netflix, from the creator of Weeds and Orange is the New Black, Genji Cohan, starring Allison Brie. It's a lot of good times, a whole lot of fun, and great music. This kind of makes me feel like Guardians of the Galaxies, the way that it uses its music. It's very appropriate, a lot of fun, get your feet tapping, get your heart pounding. You're going to have a good time watching this series. It's 13 episodes, 30 minutes about each one. Go check it out on Netflix. Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. That's what's up.
My What's Up this week is an amazing one that makes you wonder what you're doing with your own life when 10-year-old Bishop Curry IV is already killing it at age 10. Curry was concerned with all the deaths of young children left in hot cars by parents in his home state of Texas and created a device through a GoFundMe campaign that is called the Oasis. It is a tiny box that straps onto a child's car seat, and when temperatures in the car get too hot, the device begins blowing cool air in the child's face, and an antenna inside the box notifies parents and local emergency services about the child possibly being in danger. Still to be determined is how the box will be distributed, whether automatically with car seats or something bought individually by parents. But this is an amazing advance made by a 10-year-old that should have been thought of sooner, but thankfully we have Bishop to think outside of the box and bring us this awesome device. So to Bishop Curry IV, you are what's up.
What's up for me? Well, earlier this week, a federal court of appeals upheld a lower court's ruling that the confession against Brendan Dassey was involuntary. If you live in a cave somewhere and don't know who Brendan Dassey is, he, along with his now infamous uncle, Stephen Avery, were part of a very compelling docuseries on Netflix called Making a Murder. A large part of the case against Dassey was built on this confession. If you watch this series, it was absolutely stomach-turning how the cops took advantage of Dassey, who seems to be borderline retarded, to obtain it. Brendan has now been in jail since 2005, and the state of Wisconsin has 90 days to respond to this ruling. They are currently reviewing their options. But my question is, why are they reviewing their options? Why is the state so worried about the slow boy, who it's obvious to the rest of the country is innocent? Why is so much taxpayer money and resources being spent on this? Is it the fact that you want to cover up what the rest of the world already knows? You made a colossal mistake this time. Let's hope they take the L on this one. Let the kid move on with what's left of his life. So to you, the Federal Court of Appeals that upheld this ruling, you're what's up.
What's up for me this week goes to Mattel for embracing diversity and adding to its Ken doll lineup. Now, some have lamented this decision, but I, for one, think it's admirable that they've added notable characters that are more body conscious and reflective of our society. They've got nerdy Ken doll. They've got average black guy Ken doll. They've got cool black guy Ken doll with cornrows. They've got Latino Ken doll, surfer dude Ken doll. They've added a Ken doll with a beer belly, and even one with a man bun. Now, some people have been really upset about the man bun, but I, for one, think douchebags need love too. It's more reflective of our society. So what's up for me this week goes to Mattel.
We joined season 5, and Cersei's grand plan to use the sparrows to bring the Tyrells to heel has backfired. She's ended up in a cell as well, and that's a shame. Arya is learning being no one is the loneliest number she'll ever do over at the House of Black and White. Up in Winterfell, the Boltons are ready to square off against Stannis, and Sansa finds out what the rest of the world already knows. You cannot trust Theon Greyjoy, as he turns in her escape plan to Ramsay. And across the Narrow Sea, Jorah has gone full Russell Crowe in the fighting pits, and Tyrion gets turned over to Daenerys. Jon Snow and Tormund decide they'd rather be living friends than dead enemies, and this leads us to Season 5, Episode 8, Hardhome. We open the episode in the Mother of Dragon's throne room as the father of the friend zone, Jorah, is hushed immediately as he tries to explain, and an intense conversation starts between Daenerys and the greatest Lannister slayer of all time, Tyrion. IG, how game-changing is it in Game of Thrones when characters we love finally get to interact with each other?
It's really amazing because, 5 seasons, almost 5 full seasons, these people have been a world apart. They've been all the way away from each other. And now they're just like, they're right there. And I didn't see it coming even into season 4. Like when he was leaving, I'm not sure where he was going at the end of season 4. And then, all right, it looks like he's heading toward Daenerys beginning of season 5. But, so many different things happen. He got captured and caught and, hey, you're going to be over here and you're going to go into the fighting pits. And I don't know. Something said, yeah, he's going to get there. But when they're finally there, it really does a lot of things. So it's very game changing. And more than that, Tyrion's knowledge of how everything works in Westeros, how the Kingsguard is set up, of how the defenses are. He knows how all of it works because he set it all up for the Battle of Blackwater.
It kind of gives me the feeling when you watch pro wrestling, like when I watched it as a kid, and like you'd have these characters who were on the same show, but they wouldn't interact with each other. And you're anticipating like, oh, it wouldn't be great if this guy feuded with that guy or if these guys were a tag team. And then it finally happens and it's a great feeling and it's totally game changing. And kind of, for whatever reason, when that kind of stuff happens in Game of Thrones, because there are so many different storylines and so many stories that seem completely divorced from one another that you don't know how or when they're going to interact, but when they do, it's just really cool. And I think also the fact that as great as Tyrion is, his interactions with Daenerys, she holds up, and she's just as quick-witted, and she stands toe-to-toe with, one of the smartest and wittiest characters on the show and in Westeros.
Well, that brings me to my next question, because into your service, Your Grace, we've just met. It's too soon to know if you deserve my service. Ryan, this meeting between these two fan favorites, does it somehow legitimize Daenerys bringing her into the main story?
It does, because, like I said, she stands toe-to-toe with him and doesn't back down, and she's not intimidated by his intelligence or his wit. At the same time, it's important for him because I think she sees that he's a strong person, he's a strong character, and he believes in himself. And if he believes in himself, then maybe he's worthy of being her advisor. So I think it was a really important moment for both characters where they each kind of had to sell one another on each other. And I just thought it was a great moment and really lived up to my expectations.
Jules, what do you think Tyrion brings to the table that will further Daenerys' cause?
Oh, well, most definitely. He knows everything about what it means to be a diplomat, somebody that works with high-ranking officials, the kings, queens, and everybody else. And he knows all about the inner workings of the Red Keep and how to get around there and all the tunnels and all the paths. Everything that is going to be useful to Daenerys in the future when they go to invade Westeros is going to be because of Tyrion having all that information in his head. Because other than that, Daenerys wouldn't know any of these things. And that is going to make him indispensable right there.
Well, and I think that he brought Varys with him is going to help immensely.
Absolutely.
A ruler who kills those devoted to her is not one that inspires devotion. Tyrion spares Jorah's life, but he remains exiled at this point. IG, if this was an additional love line and Jorah wrote in for help with this situation, what would you tell him to do?
Oh, my goodness. Man, this is kind of a lost cause, Jorah.
Keep it moving, Jorah.
Sometimes the best love is love lost. You're just going to have to find a way to move on. But I don't think Jorah is capable,
he's
Jorah is like a hair shy of creepy stalker at this point.
Just a hair. I mean, just a hair.
Just a hair shy. He if this was real life, somebody would need to, put up a restraining order. Somebody would need to hire a bodyguard, something, because Jorah, and he's formidable, which is the other part, because you can't, just hire a thug to go beat him up or something, because Jorah could defend against that. But yeah, if I would have to tell Jorah, he'd have to take a chill pill and see if he can find some nice lady from his own hometown.
And that's the thing, really. Her restraining order is about 5,000 unsullied and 3 dragons at this point. I think she'll be okay from Jorah, but I've been in situations like this, especially with when you really, really like somebody and you just can't get something right. Like you just, mind you, I've never was spying on anyone, so someone else can have her assassinated.
I thought that's what you were insinuating.
That is a deep hole to climb out of, my friend. You may want to get a shovel and a ladder and some steps and some friends over to help you get out of that one. But I've been in that situation where no matter how hard you like somebody or how good your intentions were, you always kind of end up at the bottom, and not in a good way. So it's time for another edition of Uncomfortable Moments with Ryan George. Ryan, Jorah obviously has the best of intentions when it comes to Dany, but he fails miserably. Has there ever been a time in your life when your best intentions just weren't good enough?
My best intentions weren't good enough. Oh, so it's funny.
I am literally dying over here.
I can't even answer that. I'm trying. I can't think of a courtship situation personally, but I can think of situations where, I had a friend who was a father and who is a father, and made very little money and was addicted to prostitutes. And so we would do everything. Like he had a bad sex addiction where he was constantly like he was spending all his money on prostitutes instead of getting diapers for his kids. So I was constantly trying to get him to, to change his ways and helping him out. But then I found, if you giving him money wasn't going to go to the kid. It's like, hey, I need Pampers for the kid, but giving him money wasn't going to Pampers. It was just going to whatever his, whoever he was seeing that night. So then I would buy the Pampers, but then it was like just enabling his behavior. And no matter what I would do to try to help the situation, it wouldn't stop the underlying issue. So I think maybe that's the first thing that comes to mind of where my best intentions just weren't good enough.
I meant it. It will be the last thing you ever see. Whap! Wooden spoon to the face. Dirty, haggard, but far from broken face is Circe. Jules, are the followers of the High Sparrow poking the bear by torturing Circe? And do you feel the least bit bad for her at this point?
Oh, that's a good question. Because you really want to see Circe get her comeuppance for the shit she has done. You want to see her suffer a little bit. But I did find myself wanting her to really get that, the septa? Is that what her name is? Oh, when Circe kept threatening her, being like, remember my name, remember this, remember my face, it will be the last thing you see. You are kind of rooting for Circe at that point to get that woman, because I hated that woman with the water and then just dumping it out. Oh, it was terrible.
Well, it kind of comes back to the Theon discussion where we're empathetic people. So we don't, most of us are. So we don't like seeing people suffer. So just by showing her suffering, she all of a sudden becomes a sympathetic character. And even though she's so bad and she probably deserves she definitely deserves what she's getting, that's nothing compared to what Theon had to go through. Even seeing that, we start to sympathize with her, and then we feel for her. And yeah, I think I had the same thing. Like, I wanted her to get out. I wanted her to get back at Septo and Ella.
And here goes Ryan George trying to redeem himself from saying, "Oh no, Theon deserved everything he got."
Yeah, there's all the hate mail.
That is the thing, because when Circe visited Marjorie and was kind of like gloating in front of Marjorie, like, oh, it's such a shame you're in here in these cells, blah, blah, blah. You're hating on Circe in that moment, but it was, as soon as she's in the same position as Marjorie, you're hating on Septa, so.
Meet Lana, queen of oysters, clams, and cuckolds over Ragman Lane, and a servant of the many-faced god. We hear the tale of a thin man who is even corrupt by today's insurance standard. A gambler, a cheat, and a liar. IG, we've seen Arya kill via sword when she was in danger, but does she have it in her to poison a complete stranger?
I don't know if she has it in her yet. That's the key indicator. I still think she has some problems with killing people just based on hearsay. And even if she sees this stuff, it's still, if it's not affecting her, I think she's having trouble doing that. Arya still has too much Stark in her, I think, at this point. Too much honor. There are ways to redeem people that don't require the ultimate sacrifice. So I don't know if she has it yet. And I mean, it speaks volumes of how honorable the Starks are as a whole. But I don't know, if she really wants to be no one, she's going to have to figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, I take the position that she would have done it. I just think she's still Arya. She isn't quite no one. And Arya's agenda happened to trump what was being asked of her by the Jock and Hagar. I mean, because all of a sudden there she sees Sir Meryn Trant. And so that takes her out of, oysters, clams, and cockles. And so she needed to all of a sudden finish the list of Arya Stark. Here was her opportunity.
Well, to get further down the list anyway, not necessarily to finish.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're right.
I hope you excuse me for saying this, Ryan, but so often belief is the death of reason. Her uncle has forsaken her, the king is crying in his bed, and Jaime's off on a mission, leaving Circe to rot in a cell. How long would this farce last if Joffrey was still king?
Not long. And I think to everybody's detriment. I think Joffrey would have just sent, the city guard, sent the King's Guard, sent the Lannister army, and there would be mass death and destruction, and Cersei wouldn't make it out alive. I don't think Marjorie would make it out alive. So I think it would be a good deal of it'd be there'd be just a lot of destruction. I don't think Joffrey would stand for it.
Do you think that's the case, IG? Do you think it would be mass chaos and blood in the streets?
Yeah, and I think overly so. I think that it would cause further problems. It actually is probably better right now that Tommen is king, because at least a little bit of peace is being maintained at this moment. With Joffrey, it would have gone very quickly. Take my mother into custody, and everybody needs to start dying. Because if there was ever a mama's boy, it would be Joffrey.
Would he have done that with just Marjorie being taken into custody?
Oh yeah. He doesn't need much provocation to kind of get the wheels in motion.
That's true.
Tyrion sent him over to prostitutes, and it was, it turned into a scene from American Psycho. The kid was, let's say, has a hair trigger. It doesn't take him long to get the psychopath wheels turning. I've given up on life until Varys convinced me you were worth living for. If you chop off my head, at least my last few days were interesting. Considering their families' twisted history, can Dany and Tyrion ever learn to trust each other?
I mean, they definitely have. I mean, they're pretty much on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as being allies. But I think that they both are the most wise of their families, probably, and the ones that are able to realize what each can bring to the table without all the just hatred, blinding their feelings and thoughts about stuff. I think they know that there are things that are in the past that happened, and it's unfortunate, but they're moving on to the future. And if they're trying to do what's best for the realm, that they need to do that. They need to just overcome it. And I think they do. They're a formidable pair together. And I think like we did see with them just kind of going off of each other while he's sitting there drinking and talking with her. I think it definitely proves they can work together. They have a good sort of rapport with each other right from jump.
Yeah, but Ryan, I mean, your brother killed my father. Your father's horses killed the rest of my family. Has hunted me my whole life. Is Daenerys a little too quick to trust Tyrion?
Yeah. It's a good point. I think she might be a little too quick to trust him, but she's still young, and she throughout has shown signs of being a little naive and, at times too trusting and not at times not trusting enough. Sometimes she doesn't quite think. I think she believes a little too much in herself, which has worked in her favor. But it's almost like she's just really lucky. And at some point that luck runs out. So it kind of fits her character, although you wish she would learn. But yeah, I mean, there's no explaining it away. He hasn't done anything to show that. I mean, he could just as easily be a spy. He could just as easily been sent there. So yeah, it is maybe a little too quick to trust her.
Here's the thing that I think really binds them together. Now, while I agree that Tyrion is probably one of the smartest people in the entire set of all these families, Daenerys' thing is that she has good advisors. So she's not necessarily the smart one, but she's got good advisors that help her. But the thing that binds them together is that they're really both the absolute outcasts of their family. Because you got to remember that Daenerys was basically drug along almost as a slave and married off to Khal Drogo. So she was like an outcast of the Targaryens. Tyrion has been treated as an outcast his whole life. So really, they're the black sheep of each other's families. And I think that gets them almost more on a parallel line together, makes it a little more convenient that they would be trusting each other because they're the ones that have been undergoing the most amount of strife kind of their whole lives.
Also, she came to meet Tyrion because of Jorah. Now, I get that Jorah betrayed her, but he's obviously hopelessly in love with her, too. He says, I brought you a present. This is a gift for you. He went and, kidnapped Tyrion. So it's not like Tyrion all of a sudden, stumbled into her, throne room and was like, oh, hey, by the way, can I hook up with you? Because I killed my dad and I got nowhere else to go. It's sort of, all fell into a place where I don't know if she shouldn't trust him because Jorah brought him and she doesn't trust Jorah because of what he's done. But I think she does still trust Jorah. I think she had to do what she had to do.
I think it might actually work the opposite. Like if Tyrion just shows up, she would be maybe more inclined to believe him. Again, it could be a spy, but it's a little strange. Like one of the richest people in Westeros just pops up in front of your door. Be a little odd for that to be a plot. But the fact that Jorah captures him makes she would then, well, of course, from Tyrion's perspective, if he's captured and being taken in, he better have a reason why he's there. So I would almost be more skeptical of his honestly wanting to help her, having been captured and brought by Jorah, because I think she knows that she's upset with Jorah for betraying her, but yeah, she doesn't. I don't think she thinks that Jorah would betray her now, but kind of like he had to pay that price for betraying her in the past.
That's what I was saying.
But now Jorah having Tyrion means Tyrion's got to come up with a reason, an excuse. So I would almost be less trusting, given the circumstances.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think Jorah's intentions were like, oh, here's a intelligent advisor for your army. Here's a Lannister.
Yeah, exactly.
I want you to, put him to death. This is my gift to you, is revenge.
Exactly. That's my point. So Tyrion, what reason would she have to believe Tyrion? Because he's trying to save his ass.
Lannister, Tyrell, Stark, Baratheon, they're all just spokes on a wheel. I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break it. IG, can Dany do just that? Can she get these warring Seven Kingdoms to just sit down and shut the fuck up and behave?
That remains to be seen, quite honestly, because, it's like all these houses, even the lesser houses, are starting to get this taste of power. They're starting to get this belief that, I think I can be king. And I mean, we see that happen in the real world all over the place where, you get that taste of power and you just want to expand. And it's happened throughout the whole history of our time, and it looks like it's happened throughout the whole history of their time. It just so happened that the house that remained in power the longest happened to have dragons. And guess what? Daenerys has dragons. So yeah, she might be able to, but it's not going to be through as much peace. I think it's going to be through demonstration of her power. And that's unfortunate because Dany does really care. Dany doesn't want to do this to people. Dany doesn't want to inflict pain and suffering and everything, but it's what seems to work.
But Dany does have this ability to inspire everyone from peasants to Lannisters. So I think it won't work that way, that she could inspire the people of Westeros to take, she might be able to, but it still will end up with all out war. But she does have an ability that no one else on the show has to really just inspire the trust of people almost instantly, and we've seen it over and over. Because you're right, she does care, but I think in one way or another, this is gonna, she doesn't get Westeros without all out war.
Well, I don't know if it's to her benefit or her detriment, but she has no family left. I mean, we can now have a Targaryen reunion now in a phone booth. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need to book a hall to have a Targaryen. So she's always going to be at the disadvantage of having to trust strangers and rely on her better judgment. And we've seen with the other families how family members sometimes aren't necessarily a benefit. If you look at the things that happened to the Lannisters, or if you look at the things that had happened to the Starks, it was really their other families that derailed their reign. So she's going to have to inspire, and she's going to have to trust, and she's going to have to rely on people that their last names aren't Targaryen. Tormund, Jon Snow, and the world's most generic right-hand man, Ed, arrive at Hardhome with Stannis' fleet to try to convince the remaining wildling army to come back to the Wall for safety and a cookout. Ryan, is there 1,000 ways to say I'm sorry, but only one way to say you're all going to die if you stay here and become part of the undead army?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't understand it, because I think the wildlings, they know that things are not good there, and they need to get past the wall. And here you have Jon Snow saying, I'm going to take you. So I don't understand why they're so reluctant. I know that they don't trust the Night's Watch, but at the end of the day, it's either zombies coming after you or trust that he's, that you can get across the wall. So it just doesn't make sense. He's offering safe passage across. Just listen to him and do it. So yeah, a little confusing.
The usurper people, the people that you've been told to not trust for your entire life, shows up and says, hey, we're here to help you. It always looks a little suspect. So I understand why the pushback is there. Because, we've been told that if you get within distance of us, you're going to kill us anytime you see us. And now you're saying, no. We want to give you hot dogs and soda pops and bring you back through. No.
Yeah, it's not like you're ever going to have the people that you all of a sudden show up and everyone just says, oh, okay. You'd have to have those people that are vocally outspoken, being like, remember, we hate these people, to, help rile up his crowd behind him. So, it was definitely going to be... it wasn't going to be an easy... they weren't going to walk in and just get these people to just, get on these rowboats with them and no fight whatsoever.
So apparently Tormund isn't fond of the implications that he chows down on the no-no parts of Jon Snow as he beats the Lord of the Bones to death with his own staff. Jules, the Lord of Bones, rebel rouser or hopeless romantic who only wanted to see Tormund and Jon Snow happy together?
Well, it's like I just said. You have to have that leader. You have to have a leader because they don't have Mance Rayder anymore. Tormund, who I feel like was, second in charge behind, Mance, he's now standing next to Jon Snow, the person that they're supposed to hate. So you have to have somebody coming up and taking charge and reminding everyone why they hate people. But yeah, I think Tormund handled that situation pretty swiftly.
Well, in the way of the wildlings, really, this kind of gets them their chance to be heard. It's like, all right, Tormund beats the hell out of the Lord of Bones, and it's like, okay, you guys got 5 minutes now.
Right.
How great would Congress be if this is the way you got the floor?
Right. Just beat the hell out of the leader, and then you get everyone's.
You just send Brock Lesnar, and he's going to make policy because no one's going to get him off the mic.
Right.
The long night has come, and the army of dead has come with it. Jon Snow tries to sell the wildlings on working together to fight the White Walkers. If you were a wildling, IG, would you join them?
I don't know. At this point, maybe not, because maybe I haven't seen anything. Maybe I haven't seen a White Walker. Maybe you're just telling tales. I don't know. It might be a little tricky.
They've had to have seen stuff, though, right? That's how Mance got them all to band together.
I think he got them all to band together because winter is coming, and because that is a cycle that happens, right? The winter is a cycle that happens, and since they'd had such a long quote-unquote summer, even though they're living in a place where there's snow all the time, they know that the cycle ebbs and flows, and it's going to get really bad. And if you're all spread out, I think Mance convinced them based on, we're going to be having to hole up and try and stay warm and try and stay alive for an extended period of time. Because if summer has been like 4 times as long as it's supposed to be, the expectation is that winter is going to be 4 times as long as it's supposed to be. We're not going to survive spread out away from each other. So I don't know. And the thing is, I don't know is maybe some of these wildlings have seen things, but everybody's got the old fisherman in their family that says, I caught this huge fish and yeah, it was a guppy, but okay, buddy. So I think, getting all of them on board at this point, right at this exact moment, a little bit tough.
Okay, because I thought that they all had known that these White Walkers exist, are coming for them, because Osha was telling the tale to Bran, or I'm sure it was Bran and that whole group, about the man she loved, that she was his and he was hers, and then he died and he came and she had to burn her whole house down because he had turned into a White Walker.
Yeah, I agree with Julie. I think that I'm pretty sure that it throughout it's been kind of articulated that there's the fear of what's there, the White Walkers and the Whites, that's why they're heading across. So I think it's less about the winter coming and more about less about the literal winter coming and more, about the kind of
what comes
White
with
Walkers.
It. Yeah.
Well, I'm basing my decision and my reaction on that question to how they responded and in that moment anyway. So it's like, well, We've seen 12 White Walkers, and
Right.
we don't think 12 of them is all that big of a deal. And there were hundreds of people here. So I don't think all of them saw 12 White Walkers. I think some of them saw 12 White Walkers.
But sometimes the people that are leading other people, I'm not saying this is a fact, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes the ones that are the loudest are the ones that maybe know the least, and they just have a lot of bravado. And so what, like, the King of Bones saw was a threat of the crows in front of him. So that was taking precedence over what, might be the White Walkers and eventually. But the crows in his mind were just the bigger threat. Therefore, who cares about going with you, Jon Snow? We don't care about these White Walkers. We just hate you more than anything.
Well, at the same time, too, I mean, I wouldn't call them simple, but most of them are common folk.
Right.
So they're going to look at the enemy in front of them rather than the potential enemy that may come.
Exactly.
As Carsey puts her children on the boat and tells them those fateful words, "I'm right behind you," the mountains begin to shake and the army of the dead has come. Ryan, your thoughts on the visual of the army of the dead coming through, under, and around the walls, and would you have stayed and fought or headed towards the fucking exit?
Probably would have headed for the exit.
Yeah.
It was visually, I mean, it's stunning. It's as cinematic as anything. Better than, might take shit for this, but better than anything I've seen on The Walking Dead. As far as the depiction of the whites or zombies or whatever you want to call them, it was terrifying, like genuinely scary. I think where when like with The Walking Dead, it's supposed to be grounded in some kind of reality. I think Game of Thrones is obviously more fantasy, but in that moment it really felt almost like a sci-fi visual. So I think the visuals are great. It's kind of sad because Carsey is like a great character in the 20 seconds she was on the show, but then when she said I'm coming back, I'm like, oh shit, it looks like they're getting rid of her, because they kind of built her up in those few minutes. They built her up as like she was a strong character, had personality. They really did a great job with her for those few seconds, and then as soon as that happens, like, nah, the TV rules say you have to die, or especially Game of Thrones rules say you have to die today. So
I definitely
visually was great.
Yeah, I definitely thought that that was going to be Jon Snow's next hookup the first time I watched.
It was almost like Ygritte incarnate. It's like, oh, finally, there's another one. And she would give her credit, though, for the 5 minutes that she's on screen. She's probably the greatest Game of Thrones character of all time.
Yeah, like pound for pound. Pound for pound, like the best character of all time.
Was Carsey killed off a little too soon?
Well, here's the thing I think she did wrong. Maybe she shouldn't have put her children on the boat. Maybe she should have done a little bit of use them as a human shield. Throw her kids here, take these while I escape. Ha ha. I don't know.
More fruits for you to play with.
I'm totally sorry for your kids right now, eh?
It's
we know how you're going to
It's like
handle.
the Titanic, but it's full of bears.
That awkward moment when you look on top of the mountain and realize the tens of thousands of undead that are attacking you are the least of your worries. Jules, how eerie was it to look up and see the Night King's army on top of the ridge, just watching the carnage below?
It was absolutely terrifying to see it because, there's this freezing, you're watching everything. It's super cold. You're watching people get into boats and they're walking in water and you're cold anyway, just sort of watching it. And then just watching the Night's King look down, it sent a chill down my spine when you see all of those, skeletons line up and then just start falling off that. It was like they're so outnumbered because, again, in all these scenes, when I ever see people fighting, it's like it's so hectic. It's so crazy. How do you even know who you're killing? Because there's so much going on. And then you're talking about a bunch of, just thousands upon thousands of them. It was like, run for your lives. Just get out of there. There's no point in even fighting anyone. Just run.
During that battle, though, Ryan, once again, Game of Thrones, between dragons and giants and battles, are the three things that they get right repeatedly. How great was it, just the path of destruction that the giant was laying down to the undead?
Yeah, the giant was amazing. They do a great job. Also, like, I don't know, the physics of it works. Because obviously some of it's CG, but they really did a great job in it really feels real. Like I couldn't get over how this is an episode where, unlike, episodes like Blackwater and mostly Watchers on the Wall, where there are these big, large battles, but that are very much grounded in reality. This is our first major battle where we're seeing, we've got the Whites and we've got the White Walkers, and it still felt real. It felt, White Walkers have giants, so really felt real, and it was just a great job of everybody had their kind of badass moment, and it was just just an awesome episode. I think it was one of those that more so than almost any other episode, I was like, I got to watch this right away. Again, it's just visually just stunning.
One was just cool though.
Yeah,
just watching him just kind of plow through stuff and the path of destruction from one was just. Oh my God, just send them into the fray. Because, that's the thing. The Whites and the White Walkers did not seem to affect him all that much. Yeah, it was slowing him down a little bit, but not much. It was almost like a Hulk thing, just not quite that level, because Hulk would have just bowled through them, and one was just kind of walking through and rip someone in half and throw one to the left and throw one to the right and stomp on another one, punch another one. It was impressive, and I loved the CGI. I think, they must have put somebody in a suit and just CGI'd in smaller things around him or something, but it was really cool to watch.
A White Walker goes for the dragon glass and mows down Loboda, the Fenn's leader, shattering his axe and killing him. We haven't seen that move before, have we? IG. Jon Snow kills the White Walker with his Valyrian steel sword's Longclaw, but does there seem to be a distinct shortage of dragon glass and Valyrian steel swords to go around?
I think there may be dragon glass elsewhere. It might just be a thing. I don't know. But yeah, Valyrian steel seems to be on a short supply. Maybe there's going to be some secret in the next one where they either learn to make or forge more Valyrian steel or something. But yeah, if they've got, 12 daggers and one sword, they're going to have a little bit of a hard time.
Yeah, they're not getting very far.
Not getting real far with one sword and 12 daggers.
Against millions.
Brian, the strength, the power, and the speed of the White Walker made Jon Snow look like Sam. What were your thoughts on this fight, which included the White Walker tossing Jon Snow around like he was a child?
It was impressive. I think impressive on both ends that Jon Snow would stand up to him, and even kind of feeling his power, he'd still do it. I think this episode, if anything, cements his status as a leader and as a warrior, if it hadn't been to this point. But it was great because it did a couple jobs. The White Walker had to die in that scene or in this episode in order for us to see that Valyrian steel can kill them. But it also showed how formidable they are as opponents, and that it would be really tough for any one warrior to fight them toe to toe. So I think it really did a couple of things. And again, they're still scary. They're terrifying. But it's like I said, at the same time, it enhances or moves the story forward as far as what it's going to take to kill them.
It's true, because that White Walker killed that Thenn, and we all know Thenns are huge hunters and killers. They're very formidable opponents when you fight them, and he cut right through that Thenn like it was nothing. So you knew, for Jon to go up against him, you're right, it sort of solidified him as this great warrior.
How badly did it break your heart, though, Jules, when Carsey just sees the undead children and just kind of puts her weapons up to her chest and has that look on her face like, I can't even, not today?
I guess I was a little bit taken aback by that, because I feel like the wildlings are harder people. They've seen a lot. People die. So the idea that she kind of was a leader, she was in that leader senior meeting. So it seems to me she's got to have a lot of ability to put feelings aside and just kill whoever she needs to. I was a little taken aback that got her where she couldn't even remotely fight. It was just like, this is not going to happen. I'm not even going to try. Because with adrenaline pumping and knowing her own children are now sitting on a boat that she doesn't know if, they're even going to let Jon or her kids through the wall when they get there, especially if Jon's dead, I would think that would have been a more motivating force for her to try to fight.
Jon and company escape to the ships only because One the Giant clears the path all the way through. The eerie quiet hushes over. All you can hear is the cold wind blowing. As they board the ship, the Night's King stands on the edge of the water, looks towards the survivor in dramatic pause, slowly throws his hands up, and all the dead stand up.
Oh my God.
And this is why Game of Thrones is the best show on TV.
Hell yes.
Ryan, your thoughts and ratings on this episode?
The only thing that would knock it down a little bit is that I almost wish they spent the entire episode on it. I remember, it's been a few years since seeing it the first time, but there was little setup. I don't think there was a lot of build up to this being like a major episode, so it was a little unexpected. Not remembering everything, but I think there was a lot going on, good stuff. Like it wasn't nothing bad in the episode, but I almost wish they kept the focus on just that. For the episode, but either way, it was brilliantly done. One of the best battle scenes, on any show, really. The only thing that measures up to it is stuff we've seen on Game of Thrones. Again, the Whites and the White Walkers were terrifying. You saw badass moments from from Carsey, from Jon Snow, even from the Thenns. Like we just saw, from Tormund. It really did. It captured kind of the chaos of the moment. People trying to escape, people trying to fight, Jon Snow trying to fight back. It was just, it really had. There was so much in this episode, in that battle, that really it's riveting and something you can watch over and over, and it never gets old. And just again, the visuals, the Whites falling off the mountain, the White Walker walking in the flames, parting, just all that stuff. There was just so much great visual, things to latch onto. So I would give it a 9.8 as an episode. 9.7 I'm gonna give it.
Well, this again, I don't want to get stale with giving my 10 rating, but this again, you cannot top this episode in season 5 or as a whole in Game of Thrones. There are about a handful of 10 ratings, and this is for sure one of them. Now, I feel like Ryan is right. This was a very unassuming episode, whenever they did the previews, for next week, we had no idea this was coming. As a matter of fact, when you would read what was coming up on Game of Thrones that week, it actually only said Jon travels. Period. It was something so simple and did not encapsulate at all what was about to happen when Jon traveled. I thought this episode was just it caught me so off guard. I was not expecting the White Walkers to come. Again, at this point, we'd only seen flashes of them. Nothing on this level to actually insinuate, oh, hell yeah, winter is coming and it's coming on us fast. We knew winter was coming, but holy hell, this is more than you could have ever expected. And it blew my hair backwards on this one. I remember just sitting there slack-jawed after the end of this episode, unable to, and of course it was like, I gotta watch this again right now. So to me, again, another 10 episode for Game of Thrones, which is why I'm so happy we're covering these episodes.
Hardhome is the strongest episode in, I think, a otherwise weak season, but it also suffers from a lot of ain't shit going on until the last half hour of the show. But the last 30 minutes are some of the best content ever on TV. Great dialogue scenes between Tyrion and Daenerys, but the Battle of Hardhome was amazing. The Walking Dead can learn so much from Game of Thrones in moments like these. We cut to a horrified Jon Snow, to a quiet beach. The Night King's army just grew by tens of thousands of wildlings. This is the 10th time I've seen this episode, and the oh my god factor never wears off in that second. Props to Kit Harington as Jon Snow, because his face showed what we were all thinking. Winter is here. I give the episode a solid 9.
Well, for me, the thing I disagree with is that the first 30 minutes didn't do anything. It did quite a bit, and I think the thing it did the most is kind of got you into a lull, kind of got you into a little bit of a relax. And that relax that it put on you made the last 30 minutes, the attack of the White Walkers, that much more impactful. It made it that much more, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Because you did not expect it to take that hard of a turn. It worked. It worked very well, and I think that raised the impact of this fight. That and the whole come at me, bro pose from the Night's King right there at the end, kind of looking out at him, hands up to both sides like, what you got? Final moment. sold everything. Again, visuals in this are amazing. Cinematography was beautiful. And when you're doing things where everything is basically white and you can still show the amount of contrast they did on the screen with this, that takes a special kind of filmmaker. That takes a special kind of guy who's got a great eye, because to be able to see everything as clearly as you could and make everything work, it was beautiful to watch. This is a 10 episode for me. I really love it. And it just gives so much more setup for things to come in the Game of Thrones. So there you go from the Cynic Radio podcast, Hardhome from season 5. We're going to call this a 9.7 across the board. Great episode. Go watch it. Season 7 is just around the corner. So you're going to want to watch some of these episodes so that you know what's going on. We're going to be covering season 7 right here. And we're probably even going to be live tweeting it at Cynic Radio on Twitter. Follow us there. Right now, here comes Really. So now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for Really. I'd explain it. Just listen. You'll get it.
My Really this week goes out to Cynthia Randolph, who was arrested on Friday and is being charged with 2 felony counts of first-degree causing injury to a child. In my opinion, they should absolutely be turned into murder charges. Randolph's 2-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son were found dead in her locked car in her driveway at her home, where temperatures reportedly reached 96 degrees outside. After several lies to police, she admitted she was teaching them a lesson for not wanting to leave the car and thought the 2-year-old could get the 1-year-old out whenever they were ready. What actually happened is up for debate, but some sources say she may have went inside, left the toddlers in the car, smoked marijuana, and fell asleep for 2 or 3 hours, finding the children dead when she woke. Now, I'm not a religious man, but I believe firmly that if there's a hell, Mrs. Randolph is headed there. And maybe this time the punishment should fit the crime. In my opinion, maybe she needs to be hotboxed for a week or 2 and experience exactly what her children suffered through. I have very few weak spots, but the mistreatment of elderly and children are 2 of them. And I believe how we treat these 2 groups define us as people. So for letting your kids bake in the car while you went and got high, really?
So my Really for this week goes out to Bill Cosby, who, emboldened by his recent acquittal, will now take his show on the road for a series of town halls explaining to people how to avoid sexual harassment charges. Now, I'm not sure if this is meant to instigate or if he somehow thinks that this is actually going to help people, but Cosby really needs to thank whatever gods he prays to shut up and disappear instead of trying to lecture the world on how to avoid being charged with sexual assault. I think most people know it's pretty simple. You don't drug people's drinks, and you don't touch them inappropriately when they don't want you to. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think we need Bill Cosby, America's old favorite dad, to lecture us on anything. So to Bill Cosby, really?
Really for me goes out to Jeff Wrights, a 44-year-old Air Force veteran in California, who since January 1st of 2012 has gone to Disneyland every day. It's been more than 2,000 consecutive days going to Disneyland. Now, I understand wanting to have some fun, and he does have a job and goes to Disneyland to decompress every day. This seems like a sickness to me, and maybe I'm just a cynic. Maybe I'm just a grumpy old man. But come on, guy. Disneyland 2,000 days in a row? And if you've got passes like that, isn't there some way that you could, find some kids that would want to go some of those days where you could just not go? Do you not have any family that could go instead of you? This just screams, quite simply, idiotic. Jeff Wrights, really?
Okay, so my Really this week is about Mattel's new Ken doll line that brings the introduction of a whole slew of new Ken dolls. I mean, I can get behind bringing a more diverse look to a pretty vanilla look of Ken after all these years. And I can understand some diverse looks like the cornrow Ken or the dad bod Ken. But the one I take personal issue with is man bun Ken, because I had sincere hopes that this questionable trend was on the way out the door when I saw fake man buns for sale on Groupon. That's right, Groupon. That could be a whole different Really, but I guess my point is when we look back 10 or 15 years from now, I'm pretty sure this is one trend we will definitely want to pretend never happened, and now it's solidified in history with this damn man bun Ken. I mean, Mattel, was that really necessary? Really?
And that's going to do it for episode 37 of the Cynic Radio Podcast. I'm Igrahi, and with me has always been my co-host Cynic, who, little known fact, is the body double for the Night's King. Joining us this week has also been Jules and Ryan George. You can find him over at thejimwits.com. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, and any spare dragon glass you have to cynicradio@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at cynicradio.com. Look for us on Facebook at facebook.com/cynicradio, and find us on Twitter at Cynic Radio. Thank you again for all the support, all the love that we've gotten from you guys these past few weeks and these past few months. We love every download, and we love doing this show every week for you guys. So keep liking, keep sending us your comments, and please, please share it with all your friends. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cynicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.
At Cynic Radio on Twitter.